So here's a thing that I think might make 5 minutes of cheap content. And it's something I was thinking about recently because if you saw a previous video, the video I did last week, you'll know that I'm currently sorting out space so that I can do my videos somewhere else. With that in mind, I've been moving stuff around. Now, I consider myself to be reasonably organised when it comes to my game collection in particular. But even then, it's still quite difficult to keep track of things. Now, I have lists and lists and lists of all the different games that I've got, or should have, rather, and roughly where they are in my organisation system. Like, everything's in boxes, but I know roughly what goes with what. But I wonder if this chimes with anyone. It seems that no matter how organised you are, there's still things that either you have no clue where it is, or there's stuff that just turns up that actually surprises you have. And I wonder if this chimes with anyone else. Like I say, this is going to be 5 minutes of cheap content at best, so, you know. But it's just something that occurred to me, and I can give loads of examples of this, especially when it comes to game collecting. For instance, there's one that immediately springs to mind if you've been viewing my content for a while, and that is a couple of PlayStation 2 games that I've mentioned before that I'm convinced that I have, but I just don't have. They're not on my list of items that I do have, and they're not in the boxes where the PlayStation 2 games should be, but I am still utterly convinced that I have them. The two notable ones being one which was mentioned in the comments for the pickups video I did where I got the Xbox, and somebody left a comment saying, because I said on that video, if anyone has any suggestions for original Xbox games that I should pick up, then they'd be welcome to suggest me things so that I would know what the good games are. And somebody suggested to me Psychonauts, which I then replied in the comments, yeah, good one, but you know, that is a good game, but I already have it on the PlayStation 2. I then discovered a few weeks later that I didn't have it on the PlayStation 2. It's not on my list of things that I own for the PlayStation 2, and it's not in with the PlayStation 2 games, but I'm utterly convinced that I have it. I did have it at some point. I don't recall selling it or getting rid of it. And there was another example, Canis Canem Edit, that I was convinced I owned on the PlayStation 2, that it turns out I don't own on the PlayStation 2. But there's other stuff as well. I mean, there's stuff that, you know, you sit there and think about it and think about all the games that you've owned. And yeah, we all sell stuff from time to time. We all lend stuff out from time to time. And sometimes you get it back, sometimes you don't. But, I mean, you'd remember selling something usually. I mean, because I don't sell stuff as bulk lots. I mean, I tend to sell things. When I sell them individually. And the reason why I sell them is because I've got fed up with them or something like that. I mean, I don't sell things just on a whim. I'm just going to sell this bunch of games over here. I generally sell things individually, and I generally know what I've sold. But it's just stuff that just sort of disappears over time. And like I say, if this doesn't chime with anyone, fair enough. Feel free to not watch this to the end if that's the case. But I don't know what goes on. Because, I mean, there's stuff that I know I own or have owned at one point, but just for some reason or another isn't here anymore, and I can no longer find. I have no record of ever owning these things, i.e., you know, there's no, like, video evidence or anything of me going to the shop and buying these things, but there's just stuff that, I mean, I am pretty sure that at one point in my childhood, I owned Final Fantasy on the Nintendo. But I'm pretty sure I did. But from all sources that I can find online, Final Fantasy 1 wasn't released in Europe. Now, I know that doesn't make sense, but the more, and I go on eBay, I cannot find a single European copy of Final Fantasy 1 on the NES. You try it, okay? It's as if that game just literally doesn't exist. Now, I don't have it anymore, but I'm convinced I did. But from all official sources I can find, it wasn't released in Europe, and I don't. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes you think, is it me going mad or what? And there's other examples of this. I mean, I had hundreds and hundreds of loose, well, not hundreds and hundreds. I had about 120 loose Mega Drive games at one point. Like, i.e. games that I'd bought from boot sales and things like that I don't remember selling. But I don't have them anymore. I know exactly the box they were in, and I can't find that anymore either. So, I mean, maybe it's me, and maybe stuff just goes missing or whatever. But it's a worry, you know. And it's like, well, you know, I have moved in the last few years, and you sort of think, well, could I have left it in this loft or in that cupboard or something like that? And you think, well, no, because I remember going round the place and checking every nook and cranny. And this was like a big box of games. You know, it was in like one of these old... what it was in was like... Do you remember... Maybe some of you aren't old enough to remember this, but people that used to do like discos and things for parties, they had these flight cases full of compact cassette tapes. And the good thing about compact cassette tape flight cases is that they are the perfect size for loose Mega Drive cartridges. And I had one of these that it wasn't full of Mega Drive cartridges, because I think the thing would have probably taken about 200 cartridges, because it was designed to take 200 odd tapes. But there was loads in there, and it was a big, hefty thing. I mean, there is no way you could have missed it, even a cursory glance in a cupboard or loft. There is no way you could have missed this thing. And it's completely disappeared from my life. I cannot find it anywhere. So there's stuff like that. And then there's other stuff that I thought I had lost, but it turns out had just been misplaced. There was... I had Final Fantasy 3... fully boxed, the Japanese one, obviously, for the Famicom. Now, I thought it was with the Famicom clone that I have. Turns out it wasn't. And there was another one, I had Crisis Core, no, Before Crisis or Crisis Core, whichever one was on the PSP. I had that. I had Final Fantasy 1 and 2, I think it was, on the Wonder Swan. Which all three of them have actually turned up. They are in with my... Because I thought they were in different places, but they weren't. They were all in with the Final Fantasy stuff. So that's fair enough. But I also had a Wonder Swan to play the Final Fantasy games, which has completely disappeared. I had a Wonder Swan in the box that I bought in about 2001, 2002, for a very reasonable price on eBay, because games weren't worth then what they are now. And it's completely disappeared. I have no clue where it is. Absolutely no clue. I have been through all the boxes. I cannot find a single... I cannot find the Wonder Swan. I found the games, the two games that I owned. Or was it... No, it might have been one game on... Anyway, it doesn't matter. Final Fantasy 1 and 2 were in their special box, with the rest of the Final Fantasy stuff. So fair enough. Okay, I've found that. But can I find the Wonder Swan to play them? No, disappeared, gone. And I only owned those games. I didn't own any other games, so I wouldn't have lent somebody a Wonder Swan machine with no games to play on it. So how that happens, I've no idea. And if you've seen a Wonder Swan box, it's like bright white. Even in the back of a cupboard, you would have spotted that box. It is bright white. It looks like the front of a. It looks like the front of a Final Fantasy box. It's white. You know. It's yeah. So who knows? There's other stuff as well. I mean, I'm convinced that I had a cartridge copy of Mario Kart on the Super Nintendo. Do I know where it is? No, I haven't got a clue. I know I sold a lot of Super Nintendo games, but I wouldn't have sold that one, most likely. I might have done, but I doubt it. And I think if I had done, I would have remembered. Because I'll be looking at the price that Mario Kart goes for now and feel absolutely sick that I sold it 3 or 4 years ago. Because that's when I was selling quite a chunk of my Super Nintendo games. But that's by the by. But then there's other surprising stuff as well that has turned up. While going through the PlayStation 2 games, because again, if you've watched my channel before, I had an accident with my lists of games a couple of months ago when my hard drive crashed, which was the drive that all my lists were on. So I've had to start them from scratch. So I was inventorying all the games, basically, re-inventorying them. And I have 3 copies of Grand Theft Auto Vice City on the PlayStation 2. Now, I don't recall buying 3 copies of Grand Theft Auto Vice City on the PlayStation 2, and generally I won't buy multiple copies of games, especially stuff that is that common. There's stuff. If I see something that is particularly uncommon, if I was to go out and find 2, two Project Zero games or something, or a Project Zero game. Even though I already have Project Zero, I will probably buy it if it's cheap enough, because I think, well, I've got that one to hang on to, and there's always somebody looking for it. Maybe I can swap it for something else, whatever. But Grand Theft Auto Vice City, I mean, they go for 50 pence. I mean, what there would be no point in me buying 3 of them, even if I was to try and speculate on games, which I normally don't do. I don't even know why I own 3 of them. I don't know where they've come from. I don't remember buying 3 of them. But that's the situation. And it's just little oddities like that, people who... I think it's the sort of thing you only really get as somebody that sort of gets as you find. I think people that just go on eBay and sort of click what they want, I don't think you're ever going to get that sort of thing happen to your collection, because generally, you know what you want, you have a list and you're just basically ticking boxes. But there is stuff that, in my head, I'm utterly convinced I own. But can I find it? No. Can I find any record of it? No. It's just this little odd thing, and this back and forth here, or this forth, because there's no back as yet. It might end up being quite therapeutic, but it's just, am I going mad? Am I looking at these things and going, well, no, maybe I don't really own that game. Maybe I've imagined the whole experience of owning a single game. I have no clue. And, you start talking yourself in circles and trying to remember, well, I'm sure I bought it in that shop there, the one that used to be there 5 years ago. No, it's not there anymore. It's like an ice cream shop now. It's not that one. The one next door to the... And you're sort of going, yeah, I'm sure that is where I bought it, but... can I find it? Can I balls? No idea. And like I say, there's stuff that just goes missing, and then stuff that when you look at it, you go, how have I ended up with that? I don't even want that. I've got loads of this surplus stuff in the collection that I don't even want. It's like there are oddities in the collection. I'm not talking about the little oddities that you've bought. There's a reason behind you bought them. For instance, I own a copy of Dragon's Lair on the CDI. Now, I don't have a CDI. I've never had a CDI. And the reason I own a copy of Dragon's Lair on the CDI is because when I bought it, the person selling it said it was the DVD version of the game, which I needed for the... basically, for the Daphne emulator now, you need to have To do things properly, you need to have the DVD version of Dragon's Lair and Thea's Quest and things like that. And I bought this because the seller told me that's what it was, and when it turned up it was the CDI version of the game. Now luckily the CDI version is worth more, so I've kept hold of it in case anyone ever says, oh, I've got a CDI, oh here, I've got a game, if you want it, what have you got? So yeah, I mean, but I'm not talking about that sort of thing. I'm talking about stuff that it drives me mad when I know that I have something but can't find it. You know, and like I say, I try to be organised with these things, but still sometimes I just get absolutely caught on the hop and sort of go, well, I know that should be there, but it's not there. So what's happened there then? And I try to think, I try to work this little backstory in and sort of go, well, I remember last seeing it such and such a time. And it's the same with the Mega Drive games. It's like, well, I remember last seeing them when I packed all the Mega Drive stuff up and put it in this corner of the loft. Now, when it all came out, I remember the Mega Drive in the case coming out of the loft, and I remember a few boxes, like boxed games, coming out of the loft that have since turned out are only boxes for games. So who knows there as well. But I don't remember the tape carrier thing that had the games in it coming back out of the loft. And I would definitely have seen it because it was on top of... it was right next to the stuff that did come out of the loft. So where's it gone? And it's stuff like that that just absolutely infuriates me. And, you know, I don't know. Does it chime with anyone? Doesn't it? This might just be the ramblings of a madman that's imagined an entire collection. Or it could be that something strange is going on. Or even worse, it could be that people are hiding things from me. And I don't like that. But no, does it chime with anyone? Do you have... Put in the comments if this sort of thing happens to you so that I know I'm not alone in this. Stuff that you're utterly convinced that you have that somehow has magically disappeared into the mist of time. Or alternatively, stuff that you didn't know that you had, that when you were going through your collection one day, you thought, oh, that's a surprise. How did that happen? You know, these are the sorts of stories that you only get from proper people, is like the weird sort of stories that they sort of don't really have a point and they sort of go nowhere, but they sort of illustrate the more sort of human condition of collecting. Is like, well, what's happened there then? You know, I can only assume that all these things are actually entirely my fault, and for some reason it slipped on my mind that I've done something or moved something or whatever, but it's stuff that just, it winds me up. It winds me up when I can't find something. And again, if anyone can shed light on this Final Fantasy thing, because I am utterly convinced I owned it on the Nintendo. Now, I never had my Nintendo modified, so there is no way that I could have played a US or Japanese copy of it. So the copy I owned, or I'm convinced I owned, must have been a UK version. But for all the official stuff, I cannot find a release date for the UK version. Hopefully it's not me going mad and I've just imagined owning this game. A game, incidentally, that started my collection of Final Fantasy stuff. So I'm very surprised I don't still own it and for some reason don't have it. So, you know, maybe I have invented it. But, yeah, it's just weird things like that where you sort of stop and go... Am I second guessing myself, or are these things really happening? I don't know. Anyway, that should have filled what? Oh, bloody hell, 20 minutes. I did not expect that. So yeah. Now we're going to do this end card thing, and what the end card is exactly what it sounds like, and I'm going to start doing them for all my YouTube videos. So, in the last 20 seconds of the video, there is going to be a video that appears here, that is probably the one that I recorded previous to this video. There'll be one that appears here that is completely random from my channel, so if you want to skip through like your Sylvester McCoy or something, you know, hopping around the timeline, you can do that, and there'll be a subscribe button up here, and that's it.